Recently, there's been intense debate over comments made by former President Trump regarding London's leadership and the perceived direction of local governance. The media response, particularly from left-leaning outlets, was immediate and highly critical, portraying the statements as extreme or alarmist. Yet for many observers, there is a real underlying concern in what was being highlighted. We'll dive into this story in today's video, but before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Right now, only 12% of viewers are subscribed, so join the community and help us grow. The focus isn't about party politics or individual personalities. It's about the broader question of how cities manage diversity, integration, and the role of different legal and cultural systems in public life. London, like many major cities, is extremely diverse, with communities that bring their own cultural and religious practices. The discussion that Trump raised, whether fair or exaggerated, touches on how local policies adapt to this diversity, and whether those policies align with the expectations of the wider population. Supporters of his perspective argue that there is a growing unease among residents who feel that certain neighborhoods are developing parallel systems, with cultural norms influencing public life in ways that are unfamiliar to the majority. Critics of Trump dismiss this as fear-mongering, insisting that London remains a fully functioning city under British law, and that these claims are overstated. The tension between these viewpoints has dominated media coverage and public conversation alike. What makes this relevant is that footage and reports circulating online seem to show situations where cultural practices are influencing everyday life in ways that are visible and sometimes controversial. Have a watch for yourself.
They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique. But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders.
At the end of the day, what we're seeing reinforces the point that Trump was making. Many people feel that local leadership is failing to address the reality on the ground, and that certain cultural and legal practices are beginning to influence daily life in ways that concern residents. This isn't about exaggeration or politics. It's about observing patterns that are real and increasingly visible. Those who dismiss these concerns are ignoring the experiences of ordinary people who see their cities changing and feel that governance is not keeping up. From this perspective, the president's comments were not only accurate, they were highlighting an issue that so many others are seeing firsthand and talking about quietly, but which now demands attention. In other news, Richard Hughes has resigned as chairman of the Office for Budget Responsibility after the financial watchdog accidentally leaked Rachel Reeves's budget 45 minutes before the Chancellor unveiled her fiscal measures in the House of Commons. Mr. Hughes, who this morning refused to rule out quitting from his post, tendered his resignation in a 330-word letter to Ms. Reeves and Treasury Select Committee Chairwoman Dame Meg Hillier. After updating the Chancellor and Labour MP about the OBR's urgent inquiry into last week's budget leak, the top Mandarin said, "By implementing the recommendations in this report, I am certain the OBR can quickly regain and restore the confidence and esteem that it has earned through 15 years of rigorous, independent economic analysis. But I also need to play my part in enabling the organization that I have loved, leading for the past 5 years, to quickly move on from this regrettable incident. I have therefore decided it is in the best interest of the OBR for me to resign as its chair and take full responsibility to the shortcomings identified in the report. Mr. Hughes's resignation comes just 2 hours after an urgent investigation into last week's leak found the OBR had not shared the information intentionally. However, the probe concluded by describing the incident as the financial watchdog's worst failure in its history. The watchdog, which was created by George Osborne in 2010, usually publishes its pre-prepared economic and fiscal outlook, EFO, after the Chancellor sets out their budget. However, in the foreword of its report, Baroness Sarah Hogg and Dame Susan Rice, non-executive members at the OBR, said of the early publication, "It is the worst failure in the 15-year history of the OBR. It was seriously disruptive to the Chancellor, who had every right to expect that the EFO would not be publicly available until she sat down at the end of her budget speech, when it should, as is usual, have been published alongside the Treasury's explanatory Red Book." The chair of the OBR, Richard Hughes, has rightly expressed his profound apologies. The OBR added that the blunder was caused by 2 errors linked to its WordPress publishing site. Responding to the report earlier today, a Treasury spokesman said, "We thank the Office for Budget Responsibility for their report. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury will respond in due course." However, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch claimed Mr. Hughes had been used as a human shield to keep the Chancellor in number 11. "Someone has resigned as a result of the budget chaos," Mrs. Badenoch said. "But it isn't Rachel Reeves. The Chancellor is trying to use the chair of the OBR as her human shield. But I will not let her. Why is it always someone else's fault with Starmer and Reeves?" Mrs. Badenoch is calling for Ms. Reeves to resign after accusing the Chancellor of misleading the public by suggesting there was a huge £40 billion black hole in Britain's finances. Echoing Mrs. Badenoch's remarks, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said, "Whatever the failings of the OBR, they have not willfully attempted to mislead the British public. The wrong person has resigned today. It should have been Rachel Reeves. I am now calling on Richard Hughes to release all his correspondence with the Chancellor in the run-up to the budget, so we can see exactly what she knew and who's really to blame for this mess." However, Labour MP Graham Stringer called for the government to scrap the OBR. Mr. Stringer, who suggested Ms. Reeves risks being toppled as Chancellor after May's local elections, said recently, "I think that the OBR should be abolished. It was only put there by George Osborne. The Treasury used to do this. Their forecasts were no worse than the OBR's. It's just duplicating everything." Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats' Treasury spokeswoman Daisy Cooper added, "Richard Hughes was a dedicated public servant who has rightly taken responsibility for a failure on his watch. We now need to ensure the OBR learns the lessons from this catastrophic error and protect it from those who want to undermine independent scrutiny of the government's economic decisions." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you have not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.